So, what happens when a mathematician and finance expert steps into the world of human resources and completely rewrites the playbook? Well, we're going to find out because today I'm joined by Carol MacKinlay. She's the Chief Human Resources Officer at Pebble and a board director for one of the first publicly traded cryptocurrency companies. Now, Carol, she's been a C-suite executive HR leader for 30 years, and her widely varied career has taken her from consulting and executive compensation to leading people strategy at companies like Binance US, Xero, and Plantronics. We're going to explore how data, diversity, and digital transformation are reshaping HR. We'll talk about what it looks like in reality for HR to be an actual strategic partner, and why HR can benefit from being more business focused. Carol will also help us see where blockchain and crypto are transforming the typical administration of HR, their impact on things like compensation, culture, and customization of employee experiences. Now, if you've ever wondered what it really takes to build a world-class company, a culture where in the age of disruption, people are thriving, this episode will change how you think about leadership, people, and the future of work. Welcome to the Working Well podcast. We're the show that explores the critical intersection of leadership, business strategy, sustainable human performance, and how they are defining the future of work. I'm your host, Tim Borys. Carol, so great to have you on the show. And I've been looking forward to this for a while because I know we're going to dive into some great topics here around HR and strategy and crypto and the future of work. And there's so many different topics that we're going to dive into. But you have one of the most unconventional backgrounds for a CHRO that I've ever seen. Math degree, MBA, tax and accounting, consulting, even crypto. So what led you to HR?
So I ended up in HR after a stint doing executive pay consulting, which is part of HR, but it's kind of different, and ended up working for a company where the VP of HR quit and they said, you can do this. And we know you and we trust you. And so I've jumped in, but it makes me a really unconventional CHRO because I didn't rise through the profession. Yeah. And so I have deep respect for the folks that actually do the work, and HR is a huge umbrella of activities. And so I'm learning every day. I learn from the team, and I work with, and not, no one works for me. I work with them and they teach me and I teach them. So it's very cool. But yeah, I come in with a business background with kind of a CFO's mentality. And so I spend my time trying to run the department for the best of the company and the employee. I kind of sit in the middle there. I used to use the word ombudsman, which is, now I've looked into it, it's the wrong word. But sitting in the middle and saying, what can I do to make it best for everybody? Make this the best experience for everybody. And each experience is different. So that's my consulting hat coming in of saying, take a look at what this business is doing and what they're trying to get accomplished, and then come back with some programs that work for them. So yeah.
Well, I love that because I end up consulting a lot and working with HR departments, but my background's not that. I'm the entrepreneur side,
Right.
the human performance side in previous life. And so I, as after having run my own business, I get the business aspect. And for me anyway, I see that as one of the biggest gaps in HR these days is how do you connect it to the business?
Right.
And I often made the joke in the past about you'd always have the C-suite titles, CFO, COO, CEO, and then a VP of HR. And so in my mind, that sets the tone for what the company and what the board and the C-suite think of HR. And so how do you see HR evolving, and where does it go in the future?
So that's a big one, right? With AI, with the rise of AI. And I think we're talking a good game right now and nobody's really implemented yet. But where HR, part of the reason you get this VP of HR is people look at the administrative tasks, right? And I tell people my day is filled with 1,000 1-minute tasks. And so when I say, can you help me, please? People are like, that's a minute. And I'm like, you don't understand. I have 1,000 1-minute tasks to do. There's a lot of administrata and just day-to-day calls that you have to go. With AI coming in, a lot of that can drop away. And where HR goes from here is to the cool work, right? The programmatic work, that we can build for each person. And you and I were talking about this the other day, building an employee concierge function, making it so that I can personalize the experience you're having at my company. And that might be quite a bit different from the guy sitting next to you. That we can actually get to know you as a human being and make your life better while we make the company better. And with that, you will care more about the company. You'll want to stay with me, and we can have a good experience together for the long run. But that is where I see things going. But that's part of why you go back to a lot of what we could do in HR. We could actually hand off to the CFO. It is administrata at scale, getting it done, and so it's no different than when you look at the accounting group and some of that. Where I'm trying to spend my time is how do we minimize that, and how do we spend time making this the best place to work for people. So that's where I think people can rise.
Yeah, and obviously over the last 5 years, particularly, we've seen a massive increase in HR being seen as a strategic partner in the business,
Right.
which is great to see. But you were in the C-suite in HR way before it was cool, like back in 95,
Yeah.
2000s, around there, right?
Well, and I was telling Francoise is our CEO right now, and I was telling her I can be annoying because I understand the business. So I have an opinion about how it gets run. And so I will dabble into how we get pipeline for sales and where marketing spend goes. But that's the differentiator. That's where HR people can really differentiate, is like get to know the business and what the levers of growth are, what the levers of success look like. A lot of people, I think, bring their toolkit into HR and say, this is the way I've always done it, or these are the rules. And we had a discussion this morning about HR is a counseling function. So you may decide to do something that I find very distasteful even, but I'm here to give you counsel. You're there to make the decision. You're the business owner, right? And you know that as an entrepreneur. But that's another differentiator. Is a lot of HR people get hard and fast about the way things must be done, instead of enabling the business to do what they may want to do in the best way possible, right? And so there's a different mindset there too.
Yeah, and where I see the strategy coming into it on the HR side now is to be, again, that trusted advisor, counselor, partner, whatever you want to call it, but to help the rest of the C-suite see these hard business decisions through the lens of people and people
Right.
performance.
Right. Yeah. No, and I'm sorry, I'm full of examples from today, but like just in the morning, we talked about a hard and fast policy that would apply to everyone across the world. And when I really got down to it, it's like it was for 5 people. And I look at the disruption that would come by coming up with hard HR policy and sending it out to everyone who say, this doesn't really apply to me. I don't understand why you're sending this to me. And we get disruption from that, rather than saying, let's have a heart to heart with the 5 people that we really want to do things differently and affect change there. So that I keep coming back to customization of actually diving into what are you trying to accomplish, and just building up a policy book or a SOP around things that could be just customized and made good. So yeah,
Is unique in their own way.
right.
Overall, though, what do you think HR leaders often misunderstand about the business and the performance of the organization?
Well, you and I talked about performance too. So to get the best out of people, they need to understand their job. And so often we hire people with a job spec that's a marketing piece. It's we're selling you. You should come work for us. This is going to be really cool. Here's what you do. But we never give them a job description and say, this is what your day-to-day looks like. And it may not be exactly what we pitched you, right?
Mm.
I'm not saying that we're fibbing, but there's more detail, right? And there's more specifics to it. We don't talk to people how they need to interact with others. I spend my day on communication issues. You didn't understand that if you don't produce the report on Friday, other people fail, right? And so not only do I need to tell you what your job is, what the expectations of your job are, I need to come back to you and say there's downstream repercussions of that. So, I mean, people feel successful when they actually know what they're supposed to be doing. right? It's like they go, you asked me to do these 5 things, but we don't in a startup, and I'm a startup person. A lot of times we don't spend time on, what we call career pathing, but it's really like what does it take for you to get to the next job? What do you want to do? And it may not be, if you're a sales rep, you may say, I really want to work in marketing. That's my goal, is to go over there. So spending that quality time with you on what your rise to fame looks like, and then we can correlate that with what our success looks like and how you're going to pull the levers of success for the company too. So I go back to communications and then performance management. We can wait for the annual review. I can do a novel to you about what you did and didn't do right this year. But having those one-on-one meetings where I'm actually course correcting you is way more important.
Oh,
So
yeah. And so much to unpack in just what you said there. But
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
when those paths don't align of where the employee wants to go and the company's going, let's have that conversation
Yeah.
and communicate that and get on the same page so we can help each other out. And
Yeah, and you tell me where you want to go. I mean, I have lateraled people. I think you asked me before what my claim to fame is, or one of my claim to fame. I have made people's careers. I am the queen of taking the receptionist and making them into a successful business leader over the long haul. Of sitting and talking, what do you want to be? So my example is a receptionist who wanted to be an accountant. And I said to him, I know, I see your personality. I don't think you're going to like this work. I think you have different angles here, but I don't think that you want to sit and process things. It's a perfection job, and I don't see you being the perfectionist. So I don't think you're going to be successful, and I don't think you're going to like it. We course corrected him and moved him into comp, and he's now the director of comp for a major public company. So, up you go. I took a facilities person and said, what do you really want to do? And she said, I'm not sure, but I'm really good at systematizing things. Well, she's now running the FP&A platform for a major public company too. So we got her in, she implemented Workday for me, and she went on to do that. But that whole pathway, you'll hear me say that over and over again, that whole pathway of customizing things for people and really hearing them is what's super key. And you get performance then. People are happy with their jobs. So
I think you nailed it when you said the communication, because those conversations are most of the time not happening.
right.
As a executive coach, leadership coach, I have tons of these conversations. A client starts a coaching program with me, and they be like, talk about their goals, and I'll say, like, so what does success look like for you? And they just like, or they,
Yeah.
and they have no one's really had that conversation with them before.
Right. And whether or not they would not only what is success look like, and where are you on the pathway to that, right? It's
Yeah.
so people avoid communication. So I wrote an article a long time ago about firing well.
Mhm.
People don't like to fire. It's scary. I'm going to ruin your day. I'm going to ruin your year potentially. But it's going to happen, and the best you can do is treat that person as a human. Give them the best exit you can. Treat them the way you would want to be treated. Golden rule, right? But it goes back to communication again. It's like, if someone's not successful with you, it doesn't mean they won't be successful someplace else. I have seen people stratospherically get better jobs. I have an example of one just the other day where I did let somebody go, and I watched her get a stratospherically better job because it wasn't a good fit with us.
Yeah.
It didn't mean she was bad, but you have to wish them well, treat them well, help them find a job, and do all those things. But it goes back to, again, customizing the experience. It's, but people go in saying, where's my script? How, we're going to do this. We're going to cut their systems because they're now, 5 minutes ago we trusted them, now they're a criminal, and we're going to do that. So, but what resonates with your company and gets performance better is if people see people leaving treated well, everyone else knows they'll be treated well too if things don't work out. So,
Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
we talked a little bit about what HR often understands or misunderstands about the business side, but what do you think executives misunderstand about HR?
It's not just executives. Ask the average employee, what does HR do, and they will tell you payroll.
Yes.
Almost invariably, they'll say payroll. And well, in this company, I don't do payroll. I've had payroll be part of my org before, but it's like, well, actually, no. And then they go, benefits. And you go, well, yeah, I have a person running benefits, and they're, they go out and they do the bid and they get, but what else? And then they get kind of lost. And then you ask them what systems we're using. And I'm thinking most HR departments are using a multitude of systems, which isn't great, but it's true. And they don't have a clue. And they're like, I didn't know there was a performance management system. I didn't know there was an onboarding system, right? And it's like, well, if you didn't know, you don't value what we're doing, right? Because you didn't participate in it, you didn't use it, you don't, and all the things that we think we're doing sometimes that are just amazing work. If people don't even know the system exists or don't remember that this is part of your charter, isn't that interesting? So we spent time trying to get out there and talk to people about the fact that we're the ones we are actually looking at your equity to see if it's fair. We're looking at your comp to see if it's fair. We're making sure that the data in the system is correct so that when somebody does dip in to take a look at your career, they've got the right data. But a lot of that is where the business devalues you. Right? They don't understand all the things you're doing in the background. And to your point about being a coach, I spend an awful lot of time coaching people. It's like, you could do this or you could do that. Here's the outcomes. And a lot of times people don't play the chessboard out, right? It's like they're not thinking 5 steps out about what's going to happen, Yeah.
Yeah. And so what are some of the top tips or strategies you've learned to shift that narrative?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to open your mouth, right? And so a lot of times HR doesn't get a seat at the table because they sit there quietly thinking, I'm not a participant. I'm not, I'm in the background to hear and then take this away and go operationalize it. You have to have an opinion, and that opinion is valued. And I think people don't realize that a lot. That some coming in and saying, I've thought this through. If you do this, we're going to get up in litigation. If you do that, it might be an easier pathway, right? But you have to play the chess game out. And I think that's a missing link for some people of just not feeling empowered to talk. I think that people have it in their brain. I just don't think people feel empowered to be at the table and do that. So
yeah, and it sounds like some of it is that legacy mindset of administration,
right.
HR being the administrative function, not the strategic function, and both are
Yeah.
important. Like obviously, people want to get paid, and having a benefits program and all the other administrative sides of HR they're needed to run operationally. But there's this other missing piece a lot of the times from the strategy. So how do you think you start to shift the mindset of HR to think in that way and step up?
Well, the first thing is you need to free yourself from these thousands of tasks, right? So getting your operation to hum. So my first scorecard for myself is I go to the CEO and say, what are you hearing about my department? And my golden ticket is when they say, no one's mentioned HR in a while. And I'm like, oh, that's actually an A, right? IT's the other group that I always say, like, it's either negative or neutral. No one's ever saying, wow, that's the best. Like, unless you're throwing them parties all the time. So if people say it's working, I'm like, that's great, we're good. But then that frees you up to go and actually get involved and say, we can organize better. We should be paying people differently. We should change things up. We should spend quality time just reviewing what we're doing. And one of the things I like to do is especially because we're small, you can take the benefits bid package, find out which carriers decided to bid on your medical, and send that to the entire population that's going to be, because it just fills in information. It's like, a big carrier X decided they didn't want to work with us. So don't be mad at me that you didn't get big carrier X. They said no. And people go, oh, I had no idea. But you can get, again, going back to, you can spend more quality time with people. But first you have to get the operation to hum and bring down the noise. I worked with a group that was very proud of the number of Zendesk tickets that they got done. And I shocked them by saying, but the goal is to get the tickets to zero. And I'm like, yeah, so it's neither good or bad that you did thousands of tickets, but the goal is to get to zero. And they were like, wow. Because then that frees you up for better work. And again, I can get AI to come in and do Zendesk tickets and really, and then now you're out of a job. Get yourself out of a job and go do something cool. Go do something that's fun. Go do something that changes somebody's life. That's where people should be heading to in the AI world.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a whole bunch, if there are thousands of Zendesk tickets, that means there are thousands of problems in the system.
Problems potentially. But again, it goes back to it's mostly communications. Where do I find the form?
Yeah.
Who is our medical vendor? It's some of that where you just go like, I can set you up for self-service on that, and then I can go do something more interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you, and some of this is what we've been talking about, but you've mentioned before that your goal is to sort of up level HR for what boards and the CEOs actually want.
Right.
In practice, what does that look like?
So I am on a public company board right now in the crypto space. So we said we would probably talk about crypto
We
too.
will get
But
into that, yes.
I got pinged yesterday on LinkedIn by a woman who is a very senior person in HR at a public company. And she said, "How did you do it? How did you get on 3 boards?" Because I did for a bit, I was on 3 boards. And I said, it was all personal relationships. So I can't point you to a job board. I can't point you to anything particular. There's no search firm that found me. These were personal relationships where I added value to them. So they invited me in. I actually gave up my time. I gave up my expertise. I gave my opinion. And they said, you know what? This would be helpful. So it's exactly what I'm saying for, within the company of having an opinion, having a thought process, coming up with a strategy, arguing. I always say I will argue a business issue to death and then go have lunch, right? It's like, I'm perfectly willing to have an argument with somebody and then be friends. It's, that's okay too. We're trying to do best for the business, but it's the same thing for up-leveling HR to boards. The reason HR folks don't get invited to boards is people don't see that they're going to add the value. But if you can add the value by saying, you know what, maybe you want to hire this person, maybe you want to do a comp plan differently, maybe you want to, I've actually digested your strategy, and so I can understand actually what you're trying to accomplish. And God bless JP, who's my CEO and chairman of the board at Exodus. I bring him wacky ideas all the time, and he's like, I never would have thought of that. But wow, okay. So I may be out of the box and a little bit off, but I do feel like I'm adding value to that business and bringing him some well thought through ideas. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having an opinion is, I feel, is always very important. Sharing that opinion, even especially in the critical moments.
But it's sharing the opinion. It's also knowing when to release, right? So you can stand your ground and say this is the wrong thing to do, to your own detriment, to the detriment of the company, really, of creating friction. You have to know the business gets to decide, and you have to back away. So it's no different than the legal group has to do the same thing. They are of counsel. We are of counsel. We are here to give you our opinions, our advice, to tell you it's probably not a great idea, to give you the bounds of the magnitude of the problem that you're going to get when you get fined. But in the long run, it's the business's decision, and you have to run with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's broken glass.
And that goes back to the communication aspect of being this disagree and then align,
right.
Where we debate it out and okay, great. I've said my piece, you've said yours, and here's the decision. Awesome. Okay, I will help you implement that. Or I'm going to leave because I really disagree completely.
Right. And there are those, right? There's, you get into ethical dilemmas. I worked for a company that was charging credit card rates that were astronomical, and I chose to leave, right? I've had those come up in my career, but rarely. Most people are, sound. They have sound judgment, and sometimes we all have to learn too. But yeah, exactly. It's at the end of the day, there's no reason to take on a personal vendetta or a personal problem with a business decision. So, yeah.
You mentioned the startup environment, and I know a lot of companies these days, with how fast change is happening, sort of feels like a startup environment in certain ways. So how do you balance those business needs, the people needs, and culture building when things just feel like absolute chaos?
So, Velocity Global was the name of our company earlier this year. We just rebranded into Pebble. That is part of our journey in the 9 months that I've been here. I came into my first all hands meeting and said, I've been hired to create change. This is a company that's been around for over 10 years. It's been very stable. And some of you may not like change, and that's okay. And it's okay to opt out. It's okay even to struggle with change, but we are going to be making a lot of change this year. And if you don't want to be here, raise your hand and we'll part ways amicably. We'll help you get on your way. And it shocked people that I would open my mouth in my first all hands and say, you may not want to work here anymore. But it's the truth, right? It's absolutely the truth. But to be up, the best thing you can do about culture is to be upfront about what the culture is. Culture comes from the CEO, right? A lot of times the person in my job has the chief culture officer. It's not. We're translating what culture looks like. And culture can be good culture, it can be bad culture, it can be whatever. But every single piece of HR touches culture.
Mm-hmm.
If I offer you the richest retirement plan in the world, I'm going to get a different group of people than somebody who wants stock options. And they want to be in and out in 2 years and when's the IPO. So I'm hiring different people with different mentalities and all of that. But it all comes from, what is the CEO trying to build? Do we want a fast growth company? Do we want a stable company? Do we need different parts of the business to act differently? Right. And so I need to apply that across this myriad of things that go on in HR to make sure that we're getting the right people in the right places with the right mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things kind of come into play.
Yeah, I like that approach as well, and I agree. The old saying, "The tone from the top," or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's also the day-to-day reality, because I've consulted with lots of companies over the years and coached in different companies where they're rated a best place to work. They've won all the awards. They've got all the programs in place, and the day-to-day reality for employees is that work sucks.
Yeah.
And they're stressed out. They're burnt out. There's got a laundry list of benefits options that they can access, but I'm like, none of that matters when your boss is an asshole. Like,
Well, and fundamentally, that's what it comes down to, right? People enjoy their work because of their manager more than anything else. I'm a huge nepotism person. I love nepotism. Bring your wife, bring your kids, bring your grandma. I worked at a manufacturing company. We had one production line in the US, and it was an entire extended family of 40 people. They brought their lunch, they brought the kids in for from daycare, and they stayed there for 30 years. It was fantastic. And so, yes, are there minor HR challenges with that when you say, you know what, it's time for grandma to go, she's not performing anymore, I'm sorry? Yes, but I would rather have the stability and the fun that comes from having people's extended friends and family come to work every day. And that's very different from other HR people, but you can get by. You just have to say, you know what, sometimes things won't work out and it's okay, we're bringing your brother in. You need to kind of roll with that too. So,
mm-hmm. Well, that's a whole other episode to talk about how HR influences learning and development and leadership training, and so that the daily reality of the employee experience is shifted to align with what the CEO is talking about.
Yeah, no, exactly. But going back to your manager. So one of the things I said this at a conference a long time ago, and people were shocked. But one of the things that my CEO at Binance, when I was at Binance US, came up with, so I can't claim credit for it, a brilliant idea was to do the world's biggest 360. So instead of you selecting the people you want to give you a 360 review, or your boss selecting the people that they know you interact with, this is an open scorecard. Everyone in the company gets a list of everyone's name. And you can give 10 positives and 10 developmental pieces of feedback. And so you may not even know 80% of the people on the page. So you let those go and you look at the people you know. We allow you to opt out. You can say, I don't want to participate in this. It sounds really scary. It might not be anonymized and all of that. But we did it the first time. The whole legal team actually opted out, saying, oh, this sounds really icky. We're not going to do it. But people were able to vent their issues with people, and people were able to give kudos to people we'd never heard of before. So the net result was we had like 30, 40 people that got like 10 or more positives, and you could go to them and say, well, Tim, great job. You got 15 positives from all these different departments. We anonymized the feedback, and here's the feedback. what we really enjoy is that, you get your work done on Thursday, or that you bring food on Friday even, right? And then the people who needed feedback, now no one can complain to me that people don't know the person sitting next to them is an idiot. Now here's your place. So we could go back to those people and say, do you know that what you're doing is affecting other people? Do you know that other people watch movies on your computer all day? Do you know? Like, this is, now you have direct feedback. And the second, third time we did it, it was cathartic. People were like, when do we get to do that again?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, we really want to do it. It also raised the bar. Now you have an incentive, if you got no feedback, to go to the next level, right? Why did I not get any positive feedback? I'm going to work on that. And if I'm at the bottom, it's like, wow, I want out of this puddle, right? It's like, Carol came and told me 5 people said this mixed bag of things about me. I don't want to have that happen again. So the bar just gets raised. So we're about to do that again. I highly recommend it. We actually built custom software to do it, but we did it the first time on a spreadsheet. So 5-column spreadsheet, it was pretty simple. And then we just anonymized it and gave the feedback back. But going way back to your question about, going to work, managers don't always see everything.
Yeah.
And so how do you get people the best feedback they can to do the best job? And that was one way we did it, and it worked really well.
Yeah,
so.
That's brilliant, because 360s are often just within the people the leader chooses,
Right.
or within that direct scope. They aren't usually reaching out to other departments. And
then if you ask 10 people to give you feedback and 5 really don't have any, it's fairly obvious who the one negative person is, and then they won't give you the feedback because it hasn't been anonymized. And so it's very interesting. But yeah, no, I've heard of companies doing this kind of verbally and different, but we really did get to the point that on the 3rd try, people were asking for when we were going to do it again. So I'm looking forward to it.
is that something you did annually?
We did it in the 2 years I was there. We did it 3 times. So it was whenever we thought it was the right time to do the next round.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we shift, this is awesome, and there's so much more we could go in, but I want to shift to the AI and crypto, and all these things are starting to influence how HR shows up. So what do you see as the opportunities and the risks for HR and businesses in general? But your mandate is HR these days, so
Yeah. No, and so on the crypto side, so been at a crypto exchange, running HR there, on the board now of a crypto wallet company. You can get paid right now, no matter who your payrolling company is or who your employer is. You can get paid right now by having a crypto wallet and giving that to your payroll. Now, as the HR person, would I recommend that people take all of their payroll in crypto? It's a volatile asset, right? Where the US dollar is tried and true, and it's going to be stable, and off you go. So Binance US, we allowed you to do 10% into your wallet. That was literally, we call it fiat. US dollars are fiat. Home country currency is fiat. Put fiat into your wallet, and then you convert it into the coin that you want. So it already exists today. We're doing it for our thousands of supported employees. It's better when you can split it in 2, and you can have 2 different, you can send it to your savings account and your Bitcoin wallet or your crypto wallet. Where this evolves, where I see businesses going right now, the wallet companies want to be banks. The credit card companies want to be banks. Everyone wants to own your payroll because that's probably your biggest source of income, right? So as everyone rushes in there, Jamie Dimon has now changed his mind and said they're going to do stable coins, right? So where we're all seeing things change is there used to be thousands of tokens. There's Dogecoin, and there's, little fart coin, and all the different things that might come up. Stable coins, Circle went public recently. Stable coins that, float with the US dollar, float with your local currency, those are on the rise, and getting paid in stable coins makes a lot of sense, right? But as things evolve, we're tokenizing everything. I can tokenize fairly soon, we'll be able to tokenize IBM stock, and I could pay you an IBM stock as a token, right? It's the approximation of. That is where people are not ready. So I was talking to an HR software vendor the other day, and they were patting themselves on the back because you could see salaries in pounds and lira, whatever. I'm old. I said lira, but
I got you exactly what you're talking about.
Turkish lira, right? But I said, so how about Bitcoin? Do you have the Bitcoin symbol? Can I denominate Bitcoin? And they're like, what? And I said, how about USDC? And they're like, what? And I said, this is simple software programming, but why would you not get ready for this? Because like under 10%, it's probably 7% right now are paying in some form of crypto around the world.
Really?
It's coming though. It's coming. Yeah, no, there was a study done. We referenced it in a blog that we did, but about 7% of everybody has the ability right now to get paid in crypto. But boards of directors are not going to jump on having a crypto portfolio. Exodus is actually accumulating Bitcoin, and that's part of their whole strategy, like MicroStrategy or Now Strategy is. But most companies, our expertise is not to hedge crypto and have it in a treasury. We're going to partner with somebody else who's going to actually be able to do that. But that's where I see this going, is people will be able to, going back to my customization, you should be able to get paid how you want. So if you want some of it in US dollars, some of it in Bitcoin, and some of it paid to grandma in Mexico, we should be able to do that for you. And I don't think the HR world, and particularly not the tech vendors, are ready for that. We actually have a PM working on exactly that at Pebble to get ready for the future of how people, to be able to pay people the way they want to get paid. So,
and aside from paying in Bitcoin, I see, in a way, and maybe this is just my newbie brain thinking about it, but people get things put into their 401k and different RSP retirement accounts, and so is it just the same as just allocating some into crypto wallet?
Right, exactly. And I would imagine firms like Robinhood and those would be able to open an IRA for you where you could, where you'd be able to put tokens into it and that kind of thing. But it's all there. But then there's, on the finance side of the business, we have an investment policy, right? You have to. We're processing over $1 billion a year of people's payroll. Right. So you have to have an investment policy saying we're going to keep it low risk and all that. But now you're going to have an HR policy saying what's my risk profile. And I don't think HR, people think about it a little bit with the 401k. We get advisors to come in and say, you should be in these 4 or 5 funds because they're least risky, but they have an array, and you can get some things going there. But now it's going to be like, well, how much are we going to allow you to get in this? How much are we going to allow you to pay your car loan off with? How much? It's going to be, as we cafeteria payroll, really, what's your risk profile and how much you're willing to accept. And that could be a differentiator in accepting a job. It actually is, right? Back before I knew what crypto was, I had a fairly large group of software developers in the Upper East Coast. And they very much they would have enjoyed it if I didn't take their social security number and paid them in crypto. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, and my risk profile is not there. So we're not even going to talk about it. But times have changed now, right? But making sure that you're compliant as a business is important, and that's where we're heading for the fact. I'm all over the place, but I'll keep going. Pebble is heading for the place where you don't need an HR department necessarily. We can employ anybody anywhere. You can roll up your entities and we can employ the way you would want to employ, and you can focus on the business side of your business. That's the total addressable market of where EOR could go, is everyone who's getting paid. And then being able to do the more out of the box types of things for people. So, yeah.
Well, I see, aside from Bitcoin, like the blockchain technology in general, how do you see it reshaping like different employment structures, global hiring, employee ownership models?
For sure, right? I mean, again, Exodus has tokenized their stock, and I think there's 2 or 3 others that have done that. That is coming soon, right? So you're going to get used to buying tokens potentially through Fidelity in your trading portfolio. So I think it affects potentially everything. In some of the second world countries, not even third world countries, having property ownership is limited by the ability to store the documentation that you own it, right? The blockchain is going to change all of that. So going back to legal contracts, employing you through the blockchain and having your contract be online, having your payments even be online and almost automated that way. There's a lot you can do there. There's a lot. So yeah, it's still in its infancy. I mean, HR always seems to lag. It's the one complaint we always have, why I have so many vendors and all of that. HR lags in tech, but I think we may see some pretty big vaults forward soon on how we record things. So
Yeah. I think we're already seeing that from companies that are forward thinking and embracing this opportunity, whereas there are lots of others that are digging in their heels. And I think we start to see this separation really quickly of those that are embracing it and the change they're able to make versus the ones that are putting their head in the sand and saying,
I think we're just not going to do
I
that.
want to go
Yeah.
back to how it was.
Exactly. But it goes back to, well, and boards of directors, again, they need to be able to understand and digest what's being proposed if new things are. But it's going to become, how to get to be an employer of choice is going to be able to offer people what they want. And, the cat's out of the bag with post COVID of people going return to the office. I'm seeing people want to return to the office, and it's tough. We have our development group in Palo Alto now, and we're having to sort through people's personal wants and needs, right? Of people saying, "I'd love to work for you, but I've got childcare," and that's what I've signed up for. So making sure that we have an experience that works for everybody.
Yeah, and that again is another entire episode on the
Yeah.
implications and message that return to office sends, and what is your addressable population and people you can recruit.
Right. Well, I mean, I still think we're in phase maybe 2 of 8 of where offices go to. Offices aren't going to go away. The collaboration you get from an office is fantastic, right? We all like that, but we don't want to do an hour and a half commute.
Mhm.
So, WeWork had the satellite offices. That's kind of come and gone and come and gone, and it keeps kind of chugging along. But having smaller offices, maybe where you even drop in with partner companies, right? Where you can hub and spoke and do that. Where I live, there's what will soon be the Uber of helicopters.
Mhm.
They're going to do short stint flights. So I potentially can go from my home in Monterey to San Francisco in 25 minutes on a personal helicopter with no pilot, which is even crazier. It's like a drone. But that's coming soon too. So then I could get to the office and I can get home in a reasonable commute if that all goes. So I just think it's going to evolve and evolve again and evolve again. But the reason right now to return to the office, the collaboration is great, but people are like, what's in it for me? Go back to the obvious: food, beer, camaraderie, fun, right? And that's my job, is to make sure there's some compelling reasons to go back to the office.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and we could completely go down that rabbit hole.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
out
I've
there.
talked to some people on that have a completely globally distributed workforce. I've worked in organizations that way, contracted with them, and it works. And you can create great culture and great camaraderie with people overseas in
Yeah,
any place. It's how you structure it. What's the culture you build?
right.
How are leaders promoting that, championing it, and modeling it throughout the organization?
Well, and we haven't called it that here. I've called it this in past lives, but having a virtual office manager, someone who's responsible, you're alone in country X and there's 5 people in your general region, making sure that you're having a good experience, that you're not feeling alone working from, your kitchen and you never get to go anywhere or do anything. Having and that experience may be different for you and your little team of people than others, but we're trying to do that here too. We're in over 40 countries just with our internal employees, 45, I think.
Yeah.
And making sure that people don't feel like we're US centric. It's all happening here. If you're not here, it's not a good place to work. Making sure that we're hitting the pulse points across the world so that people feel included. but you have to have somebody assigned to that. It doesn't just happen naturally. You have to have somebody focused on what we do.
Yeah, I love that. I've never actually heard that virtual office manager title, and makes perfect sense.
What a fun job, right?
Yeah, I've
What a fun
I've
job for
just
somebody.
expanded my mind and learned something today too, which is phenomenal. Love
That's
it.
great. Oh, that's
All
awesome.
right.
Good.
So again, I we might have to do another podcast because there's so many more things to discuss. Diversity, culture, human centered leadership, the learning and development aspect, stuff we could dive into as well. But to sort of bring it back to what we've talked about on the strategy side of HR, how the changing impact of crypto, blockchain can, and even just the relationships between HR and executive leadership and the board and the employees. What's your overall summation of the next steps people could take, like an HR leader could take to start
Okay.
creating that change?
I think for an individual that's already in the job and is wondering where they go, I think people will tell them. I think if you go to the business leaders and actually say, I'm really looking for real feedback. I'm really looking for how I could differentiate myself. Am I doing a good job just making the department hum? Is that all good? But what can I do to really have you appreciate my opinion? Right? And what do you think I need to learn? I think there's, so often we promote people to the top that kind of vaulted through the whole L&D process. They were just smart people. They figured it out. But what do I need to learn, right? Where are my blind spots? What do I need to learn, and how can I support you better? I think people do the support you better, but really support you better. So I have a software idea, and now I'm going to tell your whole podcast thing. I keep giving this away, and nobody takes it. I would love to be able to know everything about all my employees. So I keep saying it's like eHarmony meets some sort of system that is almost like a dossier system, right? So I'm going to ask you 500 things about you. I know your wife's name, your dog's, breed. I know your birthday, blah, blah, blah. I know everything about you. AI can now help me build a dossier about you that says, you know what, you should send Tim chocolate cupcakes on the third Friday of the month because that's a sacrosanct day for him and he loves chocolate cupcakes, right? Customizing, going through that. But with AI, I've always said this would just be great. Like if I had an index card file saying, it's your wedding anniversary. Okay, great. I'm going to do something for you. Oh, we should be looking at your pay about now. Okay, we've got that. But with AI, it could come up with fantastical things, right? Send Tim likes white shirts. Send Tim a new white shirt because he likes the ones from Nordstrom's, and do that 3 times a year, and he's going to actually appreciate you, right? Where could software lead us from here? That would be fun, right? But that's where this all comes together, is just really knowing who your clientele is, and helping them rise. Every single business leader is going to say, you can do your best job in HR if I actually see performance rise. And that weighs back into your whole background too. We spend time making people happy, but not making performance rise. And I think that's the keys to the kingdom, right? You will be successful if people say people got better because you were here.
Absolutely. I love that. The saying I often use is, we have all kinds of wellness, but we don't have well-being.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so the gap, how do we?
Well, psychological well-being too. If I know you believe I'm doing a good job, right, and I believe that you've gotten better because of me, and you give me kudos for it, you're happy, I'm happy, right? We both go back and forth. But again, it's doing things the same way and not asking for feedback about how to get better. I think that is one of the levers that people can use.
Mhm.
So.
And I love the idea about that dossier CRM/AI driven employee experience accelerator, we'll call it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the tools are all out there to do that, where I don't even need to touch anything. It can just come back to me and say, this is Thursday. Here's the 10 things that you should do. to make these people feel like they're included here,
Mm-hmm.
and to get the feedback they need too. I mean, I made examples of giftings and things, but it goes back to just, it's time to give this person feedback,
Yeah.
right? It's time to go out and get feedback for them, all of those things. But yeah, I think it's fun.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, and I heard lots of people say it before, but where does the privacy come into that? How do you balance the
You have to let people opt into this. It would have to be an opt in. And there's going to be people who would absolutely opt out. And that, again, that's the wonder of technology. It's like you could just say, absolutely not. I don't want you to know my birthday. I don't want you to know my wife's name. I don't want you to know anything about me. I just want to do my job. And that is again, that's concierge to you.
Yeah.
Of like and I've always had, because I've always been around software development, there's people who want to work 2 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
And they just want to be left alone to go do that. And it's like, get your job done. That's great. I will stay out of your hair. Right. We'll provide you what you ask for. And if you ask for nothing, that's fine too. So, yeah.
Yeah, and based on what we talked about today and our previous conversation, I love the concierge aspect of it and that customization. We have the technology to do it.
Mhm.
It's just really shifting the mindset of organizations, executives, HR to be able to provide that. And to an extent, shifting the mindset of employees to know that it's possible.
Right. Right. And get shifting the mindset to know it can be done at scale too.
Yeah.
So, we're hundreds of employees. A small startup could be like, oh, this would be easy, right? But that's what people like about small companies is the founder, CEO does know you,
Yeah.
did meet your family at the picnic, does remember you. And that intimacy gets lost over time. But with technology, there's no reason why we can't embrace small company core values, I guess, right? At scale, it can be done.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Little quick rapid fire to wrap up here.
Okay.
What's one belief about HR or leadership that you think most people need to unlearn?
That we're administrative people.
Okay.
I think there's very few anymore. I think that is going back to personnel, right? It's almost that mentality from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So,
Yeah. What's one philosophy that you've embraced that you feel has made you a more effective leader?
I believe strongly in transferable skills. So the one thing I hate is to see people regurgitate the same people because to crypto, when you come to me and say, I want somebody with 20 years of experience in crypto, and I go, well, that doesn't exist. So now we're going to find the person who has 15 years and regurgitate them again and again and again because there's only 5 people in the world who have the experience that you're looking for. I believe heavily in transferable skills. That's what brings you diversity. I believe in diversity of thought, not diversity of skin tone and gender and all that. That's all good too. But I believe in not surrounding yourself with people who look and act exactly like you and think exactly like you. So if you look at transferable skills and say, I can actually take what that person knows and bring it over here, they will learn and I will get an outside viewpoint of what's going on. I believe very strongly in that. Very, very strongly.
Okay, I think this maybe answers the next question, but how do you personally stay future ready as a leader and a human?
Oh gosh. Well, like I said, but when we started, I try to learn from my group, right? And I constantly am tossing people and telling them to go demo new products and bring me back things to learn. So my group finds that I'm bombarding them sometimes with, you should go to this seminar, you should test drive this software, you should go look at what's going on here. There's always something better around the corner and or a new thought process going on. So I use my captive audience of 30 people or so to help me learn and stay current. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. One last wrap up question. Many of the listeners here are senior leaders and HR professionals. If you could leave them with one challenge or mindset shift for the next 12 months, what would it be?
Oh gosh. Well, I scarily, sadly, am worried about the next little bit here, but the stock market where it is. I'm hearing people call October 99, which I lived through, right? I lived through 2008. I remember the day that a dollar was worth 99 cents or 98 cents. I'm worried about that, and I'm worried about the impact on employees in what has been a tough market post-COVID with inflation and all of that. I think people need to get ready for, if the stock market does correct, and it corrects hard, what they might need to do to make people whole. And I hate to end this with kind of like a sobering thought, but I do worry. It's been euphoric these last few months, and I worry. So yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and we're definitely due for a correction.
Right. And so they said the fear and greed index today was still neutral. So we still haven't gotten there. The market could still run, but I just worry that we could have a pretty legitimate correction and people will get very, very fearful. And we need to do what we can to rally the troops and make sure our companies all feel good about where we are and that we're going to take care of them. So
thank you so much, Carol. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now, before we wrap up, I just have to ask, where can people find you?
Thank you.
Website, LinkedIn, etc.
LinkedIn is an easy way. Obviously, I'm one of the, I will now say this and then get bombarded. One of the few people who actually responds to pretty much every LinkedIn message I get. I had a CEO at Plantronics who told me that was my job. And I'm like, he said, answer every phone call, answer every email, answer every LinkedIn. And I'm like, and I tried. I was like, okay, it's a challenge. I'm going to give it a shot. So I still try to respond to people, but that's the easiest way to find me, I think. Obviously at Pebble, and if you want, connected, one of the things I wanted to mention just to the audience is we feel like we're advisors to everyone around the world because we're in 185 countries, but that doesn't mean that's a sales pitch. We're here to help, and we want people to trust us. If you need help, if you feel like you have a corner case someplace, our sales team's happy to kind of walk you through what you might do to get out of it. And that's not us trying to sell you business. We're happy to do EOR, but we're also happy to help. So if people have questions, I'm happy to refer them into the right people. So thank you so much. This was fun. Appreciate it. Awesome. Good.
That wraps up another episode of the Working Well podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Now, which guests or topics would you like to see featured on the show? Message me through LinkedIn or on the contact page of timborys.com with your ideas. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim Borys with Fresh Wellness Group, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.